Most hardcore and even casual Star Wars fans are disappointed with Disney's sequel trilogy as a whole. It's a disjointed and high-octane bumpy road trip that seems unsure of where it wants to go. I'm not going to get into the production issues, politics, and who's to blame for this Frankenstein of a story, but I can definitely say that if you take all the books, games, and comics material as a whole, it's actually a lot more consistent. And all of that creative content was declared non-canon as soon as LucasArts was sold to Disney. Only, I don't think it really needed to be. Yes, there are some parts of the Legends material that I don't really care for, such as the Yuuzhan Vong War, but still, as a whole, it was remarkably consistent and well assembled. The reason for this is that LucasArts actually had a hand on the wheel, and even George Lucas himself. For example, during the Yuuzhan Vong War, the writers wanted to kill off a major character so that it felt like there was more at stake in the storytelling. But George Lucas himself restricted who they could kill. They couldn't kill Luke Skywalker or Leia, for example. So they asked about Chewie, and George said, okay, well, Chewie's okay. So they killed Chewie. Chewie died while trying to save the youngest of Leia's children. Of course, there was some fan backlash. And yet, unlike the sequel trilogy, they even had people whose only job was to help the writers stay as consistent to canon as possible, and therefore keep the contradictions to a minimum. It isn't really that hard after all. You don't have to read every novel, every comic book, and play every game. There's Google these days, and Wikipedia is an excellent source. Okay, this sort of rant over. Let's start at the beginning, The Force Awakens. And I guess we'll start with the text crawl. Okay, Luke Skywalker has vanished. In his absence, his sinister First Order has risen from the ashes of the Empire and will not rest until Skywalker, the Last Jedi, has been destroyed. Okay, let's stop right here. Apparently in Disney Star Wars, Luke Skywalker is the only surviving Jedi. It's as if the title of the preceding film, Return of the Jedi, has been forgotten. In Legends canon, there are many Jedi by this time. The most well-known are all of the Skywalker offspring, the twins Jacen and Jaina Solo, Skywalker's own son, Ben Skywalker, Skywalker's wife, Mara Jade, who is a total badass, and let's not forget Kyle Katarn, and many others. Most of these Jedi were trained by Luke himself. A few are lost Jedi who were rediscovered and brought to the light. But let's continue. With the support of the Republic, General Leia Organa leads a brave resistance. She is desperate to find her brother Luke and gain his help in restoring peace and justice in the galaxy. I find it odd that Luke, given his responsibility as Grand Master of the New Jedi Order, would sort of disappear. But in all previous canon, Leia is not a military officer. She's a diplomat, a senator, and a very good one. She is in fact the one that accepted the peace treaty with the Imperial Remnant. Leia has sent her most daring pilot on a secret mission to Jakku, where an old ally has discovered a clue to Luke's whereabouts. Okay, in Star Wars Legends, the New Republic, which later reforms into the Galactic Alliance, is the power of the galaxy. It is similar to the Old Republic, but since they fought with the Imperial Remnant and various warlords for decades after the Battle of Endor, and then later the nightmarish Yuuzhan Vong invasion, they never demilitarized. Instead of a meager resistance led by General Leia, the New Republic would be sending fleets of Mon Calamari cruisers, even their own versions of Star Destroyers, to deal with any kind of fascist upstart such as the First Order, not to mention the Jedi themselves. In the Disney Star Wars universe, there's only one offspring of the Skywalker bloodline, Leia and Han's son, Ben, who becomes Kylo Ren. Okay, this is partially right. In the Legends Star Wars, the Solos actually have 3 children, the twins, Jacen and Jaina Solo, and then later Anakin Solo. Luke Skywalker also has a son, whose name is Ben, and he is actually my favorite of the Skywalker offspring. Kylo Ren is a pretty similar analog to Jacen Solo. In fact, they even look similar. Jacen was quite a bit more interesting though. He spent a lot of time traveling the galaxy to learn rare and interesting force powers, as well as how to use the Yuuzhan Vong's weird organic technology. he does unfortunately turn to the dark side and becomes Darth Caedus, having been influenced by a nasty Sith lady named Lumaya. Now Snoke seems to have been created with no real plan. It's as if JJ made one of those famous mystery boxes he makes without actually putting anything in the box. Now this is something that he has done before. Snoke could very well have been Darth Plagueis if we stick to the Legends canon, since although Palpatine did kill Plagueis, so he thought, Plagueis was capable of creating some very interesting experiments. Now, Starkiller Base. Okay, this is a Frankenstein of a superweapon, the likes of which, in Legends canon, have not been seen since the time of the Rakatan Empire's Starforge. The Starforged used the power of a star to create an armada of ships, not destroy things. In Legends canon, it takes decades and decades to build even the Death Star. Destroying a planet is a pretty big deal. Destabilizing stars is a thing in Star Wars Legends as well, using Centerpoint Station and the Sun Crusher, an idea I really never cared for, but to do so over distance, this is not within the ability of the galaxy's technology. Unless you find some ancient technology like the Starforge or Centerpoint Station. The First Order somehow has created this superweapon all of its own accord and put all other superweapons like the Death Star to shame. Okay, we better move forward to The Last Jedi. In the opening crawl it says, "The First Order reigns, having decimated the peaceful Republic. Supreme Leader Snoke now deploys the merciless legions to seize military control of the galaxy." Okay, so they've already decimated the New Republic in Star Wars Legends. This would not happen, not in the short amount of time. The Galactic Alliance actually consists of the New Republic, the Imperial Remnant, the Corellian sectors, all of which have united for protection against just this sort of thing. They have Star Destroyers, they have Calamari Cruisers, they have Super Star Destroyers, TIE Defenders, TIE Phantoms, K-Wings, Stealth X-Wings, and all kinds of things. Anyone who would mess with the New Republic in Legends at this juncture would be in for years of war. Alright, I'm going to skip the rest of the text crawl and just say that the geopolitics of the Legends universe are completely different from the Disney Star Wars universe. We come to Ahch-To, where Luke is a hermit and a curmudgeon. In Star Wars Legends, he is far from anything like this. In Star Wars Legends, he is out front, fighting with his Jedi, extremely engaged with family, friends, students, and the goings-on of the galaxy. The Luke Skywalker of Legends, although cautious, is utterly fearless. Now I would like to touch on the nature of the Resistance fleet and the First Order fleet. The flagship of the Resistance is this pretty big Calamari cruiser. In Legends, this would most likely be a Viscount Star Cruiser, which is a Mon Calamari ship that equals a Super Star Destroyer in size and outclasses it in combat. But Snoke has his own flagship, the Supremacy, which is much larger than this. That's fine, I guess. In Legends, the Imperials have the Eclipse Star Destroyer, which is a wicked Star Dreadnought armed with a super laser that's not quite capable of destroying a planet, but it can crack the crust of a planet, leaving it a molten sea of fire. Also in The Last Jedi's opening battle, we see some A-Wings, X-Wings, and these silly bombers. In Legend Star Wars, the Y-Wing successor is the tough and powerful K-Wing, which probably would have been used instead of those bombers. Now I have to be honest, I've only seen The Last Jedi like twice. It seems to get a little worse every time I see it. I don't really have too much to say about the rest of that movie, but the real comparisons come into play with the rise of Skywalker. In the opening crawl it says, "The dead speak, the galaxy has heard a mysterious broadcast, the threat of revenge in the sinister voice of the late Emperor Palpatine." And then blah 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 blah. Okay, when I saw this I immediately thought of the Dark Empire comic, which also resurrected Emperor Palpatine. Now in The Rise of Skywalker, the Emperor simply says that he has died many times and that the dark side is the key to many abilities. Well, thank you for that brilliant explanation. I'm personally opposed to bringing back Palpatine at all, but if you're gonna do it, the best way is to do it kind of like the Dark Empire comics did. You know when Vader throws the Empire down that deep shaft and this blue light comes out in Return of the Jedi? Well, in the Dark Empire comics, this same blue light reappears throughout the galaxy. In fact, Coruscant is still being fought over some 10 years after the Battle of Endor, and Luke himself is there, where he encounters something like a force storm with this blue light. Luke ends up on Biss, the Emperor's secret throne world in the deep core. The blue tones and colors of Biss are just like what we see on Exegol in The Rise of Skywalker. But wait, in the Dark Empire comics, there is actually an explanation for all this. Of course, Luke is flabbergasted when the Emperor reveals himself. Luke did see him die after all. But using the dark side takes a terrible toll on Palpatine's body, which is why Palpy ages so quickly and looks the way he does in Return of the Jedi. Now, this is all written long before the Revenge of the Sith, and explains things up until that point. So what Palpatine has to do is keep a number of fresh clones of himself. When one body dies, he's able to transfer to a new clone. Nice, simple, clean explanation. Okay, the bulk of Rise of Skywalker is a ruckus ride, giving us no time for deep analysis, but we can talk about Force healing. Yes, in Legends, Force healing is a thing. Luke Skywalker is able to put others into a Jedi healing trance, which pretty much forces them into a kind of sleep for several hours, and they wake up feeling like $1,000,000 later. It's not an instant heal though. There are other Jedi that specialize in healing, such as the Mon Calamari female Silgal, one of Luke's students who later becomes a Jedi Master. She can heal others in ways that Luke can't, and sometimes better than medical technology of the time. But still, this is not an instant healing ability. It also doesn't require you to give up your own life force. Another force power we saw in The Rise of Skywalker was used by Palpatine that gamers would call Force Drain. Yes, this is another power where you can just suck the life out of people, so no problem there. So we come to the final defeat of the Emperor. In Legends, the Emperor is in a dying body. All of his clones have been destroyed, so he tries to jump into the body of Leia's unborn child. Everyone has to sort of confront the spirit of Palpatine itself to beat him. There is no lightning storm in space. Okay, if I get too much into this video is going to turn into a rant about the flaws and plot holes in the sequel trilogy. But there's already plenty of that on YouTube. But I'll admit, we don't get a lot of interesting dark side villains in Star Wars Legends unless you want to fast forward 100 years later and talk about Darth Krayt and all of his interesting Sith followers, or you could go thousands of years back to Darth Bane, Revan, and the Emperor Valkorion. There's really not a lot much more I can say about comparing these two universes. Other than that the Legends Star Wars universe is very well fleshed out. It's alive with content. There are all manner of Jedi, Sith, Darksiders, and Grey Jedi. I'm going to officially declare the sequel trilogy not canon, at least in my own mind, in my own Star Wars universe. It didn't happen. Why? Because it's inconsistent, badly written, and worst of all, forgettable. Luckily, hopefully, everything that has to do with the Skywalker saga is over and done with, and we can look forward to other parts of Star Wars, such as the eras before the Skywalker saga, the Criminal Underground and the Mandalorian, and occurrences in awesome games such as Jedi Fallen Order. This is a slightly unusual video for me, as I don't usually voice strong opinions about the nature of Star Wars and Star Trek franchises. But my opinions have been bottled up for some time. Well, thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe, hit that bell down there, and consider becoming a patron on patreon.com/resurrected. Until next time, space friends.